Hello folks, Min-Max Munchkin is finally back after 2 weeks of playing way too much Gloomhaven in Tabletop Simulator. That game is so fun yet incredibly time consuming too. Just like D&D, right? Also, if you hear pigeons doing pigeon sounds, they've been loudly flirting and screwing with each other for weeks in front of my windows, so apologies for that too. Anyhow, in this video, I'll attempt to briefly talk about the newest Unearthed Arcana playtest options, emphasis on attempt, because if you've ever watched any of my videos before, you'll already know that this is at least an half an hour affair. The fighter, rogue and sorcerer subclasses in this Unearthed Arcana are radically revised iterations of Psionics based 2019 Unearthed Arcanas, with a few new spells and feats on top. The similarities are few and far in between. The pervasive psionic talent die is a proposed new mechanic shared by all psionic characters. It is, in my opinion, a step up in the right direction for psionic character options, with earlier psionic Unearthed Arcanas being too unbalanced and mechanically lackluster. This psionic talent die begins as a d6 and then gradually grows in size every time you level up into a new character progression tier. However, every time you roll the maximum number on that die, it reduces in size until it becomes unusable. You can replenish it with a bonus action once per long rest, though things can quickly go sideways with smaller die sizes, with probabilities working against you on lower levels. This randomness factor is true to the core of D&D, though I find myself wondering whether psionically gifted characters would have such a wide and seemingly erratic, uncontrollable range of mental powers. I mean, they just might have, but I personally always think of psionics as beings at least somewhat in control of their minds, their bodies, and their surroundings. Therefore, I'd like to see an alternative way to use your psionic talents, something like an effect that isn't necessarily as powerful, but it is more consistent and won't blow up in your face just because you've had a string of unlucky maximum psionic talent dice rolls. Comment down below with the number of times I said psionic in this video. The first person to guess correctly, well, I don't know, wins the internet or something. I'll probably pin that comment too. I mean, why not? I'm just an ordinary YouTube bloke trying to feed the YouTube engagement metrics into the ravenous YouTube algorithm. So if you got nothing better to do, tap that keyboard a few times, alright? Alright, so Cyanide, it's a heavily revised Psychic Warrior Fighter subclass, which I already covered in a video a few months ago. The link is in the description below. If you're already scrolling to click on it, might as well psionically make the thumbs up button turn from gray to blue and a subscribe button from red to gray. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm, you know, just saying. This fighter's psionic talent allows it to reduce damage to itself and its allies within 30 feet, jump very far, and telekinetically deal a bit more force damage once per turn. All that with just the power of its own mind. How cool is that, huh? So, Telekinetic Adept, as its name suggests, is a feature that expands your telekinetic capabilities. You can prone or push the creatures you deal extra force damage to with your psionic talent, or move objects and willing creatures around. The telekinetic movement option is especially juicy because you can pull squishy allies away from high melee damage monsters, or maybe you want to pull the rogue closer to the enemy so it can sneak attack. Battlefield control is very nice with these types of features. The downside is it immediately reduces your psionic talent die size, so you really have to be very conservative with its use. However, if your DM lets you kill enemies by dropping heavy rocks on them, it's kinda well worth it, even though it's a cheesy way to do it, right? It's pretty much not covered by these features, so it would be up to DM to decide what happens if you just telekinetically pull the rock and drop it on some unsuspecting enemy monster's head. Psi enhanced metabolism makes it easier for you to deal with poisons and psychic damage. Though situational by design, poison damage is quite common in the game, and monsters that deal psychic damage are often tricky to deal with, so this will give you more staying power in a lot of those cases. Bulwark of Force sounds good on paper, but on level 15 effective +2 AC from half cover usually won't help too much, because the enemies either don't challenge yours or your allies' armor classes at all, or even if they do, they have double-digit hit bonuses and advantage on their attack rolls. Nevertheless, this can help against a horde of individually weak enemies if your DM is willing to torture everybody, including himself or herself, with 10-hour-long mass combat encounters, which is usually what happens when you have more than, I don't know, 4 or 5 enemies at level 15. At least that's been the case in my own experience, playing and DMing these higher level characters. Telekinetic Master is basically a telekinesis, I can't speak English, spell that cannot be counterspelled. It's not the best control spell, but the restraint condition might be worth it against one tough monster. The object pulling can work nicely for stripping heavy armor users of their high armor class, and the good old drop a heavy rock on the enemy is always there to save your ass, even though you probably could have been doing that from level 7 with your telekinetic adept feature. Overall, Cyanide Fighter subclass relies a tad too much on the psionic talent die to work optimally. It's kind of like the common issue with all these newest psionic subclasses. As I've already said, psionic talent is true to the core of D&D, you know, the randomness is pretty much what happens in D&D regardless. But as I've said before, I'd like to have an option B, especially for this fighter subclass. Something that's not maybe too powerful, but it would still give you something to do even if you know, have a string of unlucky maximum psionic talent dice rolls, which obviously lose you your psionic talent completely. Now, SOULKNIFE was a rogue subclass which I talked about before as well. Link to that video is in the description as always. That old version was quite strong, maybe even overpowered. Now, SOULKNIFE's psionic talent allows it to have some of the highest ability skill and tool check bonuses in the game. Paired with the option to give yourself and your allies 1 hour telepathy, you can effectively communicate in total silence while sneaking around successfully behind enemy lines or breaking into some ancient crypt full of undead. However, unlike the old psionic enhancement feature, you can no longer increase your maximum hit points and movement speed, so you won't be as tanky and fast as you would have been before. Psychic blades work similarly to how they worked before, allowing you to attack twice on your turn using a bonus action. This fixes the common issue rogues face when they make only 1 attack per turn. Needless to say, psychic damage helps circumvent resistances and immunities to bludgeoning, piercing and slashing damage many monsters have, even on lower levels, especially at higher levels. Soul blades are a significant improvement compared to terrifying blade feature the old SOULKNIFE had. They make you feel more accurate and mobile at the expense of your psionic talent die size. I feel like this is a worthy trade-off in a critically important situation where you really need to hit an enemy to deal some like last bits of damage to kill it, or use a short-range teleport to get out of danger or catch up with a fleeing enemy. Psionic Whale offers the same benefit as the older Psychic Whale feature, but its uses are now limited by the psionic talent die size, obviously, not your intelligence modifier. This makes it weaker as you have to pick and choose what to burn your psionic talent die size on. You know, you have these Psychic Blades, Soul Blades, all the other features that rely on your psionic talent die size, so you really have to be very, very picky and conservative. A Rend Mind has been significantly nerfed as well, as it no longer deals 12d6 psychic damage, it just stuns the target. The stun is really good on its own, but you're limited by the psionic talent die size again, so you won't be able to use this feature as often as you would want. As a whole, SOULKNIFE seems to peak at level 9 when it gets its Soul Blades feature. From that point onward, it feels like a more nerfed version of the older SOULKNIFE, and maybe even more nerfed than it should have been compared to that first version. Hopefully the official version is something in between the older overpowered and this new maybe slightly underpowered version. The official version probably will hit the shelves at some later point this year or maybe next year, we'll see. Most likely coinciding with maybe the Baldur's Gate 3 release. I'd like to see it fall somewhere in between this new and the old SOULKNIFE. Anyway, Psionic Soul is a heavily revamped Aberrant Mind subclass for Sorcerer. The Origins table provides ideas for the source of your psionic powers, though I don't see why you wouldn't be able to come up with all sorts of crazy explanations on your own. Psionic talent feels very, very, very strong. The option to gain an extra spell even for an hour paired with the chance of casting any one of your spells without any components at level 1 morphs Aberrant Mind's psionic spells level 1 feature and psionic sorcery level 6 feature into basically one feature. While less spells reduces your options, imperceptible casting of any of your known sorcerer spells, not just your psionic spells, at level 1 instead of level 6 is significantly more powerful. Telepathic Link isn't as generous as that of SOULKNIFE Rogue, but it's still an option when needed. The downside, of course, is that all 3 of these options require dice rolls, so with a d6 psionic talent die, you're quite likely to at least reduce its size before the day is over if you keep using these options. At least Psychic Strike at level 6 doesn't add to these struggles too much, because just a few more points of psychic damage for your leveled spells, not even your cantrips, against a single creature is not really that important at level 6. I feel like this should be one of the Psionic Talent level 1 options instead of the imperceptible casting. Psychic or Psionic Sorcery requiring level 6, just like it was in the old Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. Mind over Body is Aberrant Mind's Revelation in Flesh. More or less some things have been slightly modified, nerfed, buffed, whatever you want to consider it. The major downside is, of course, that it requires the Psionic Talent roll on top. The upside is that it lasts at least 1 hour, probably even more, compared to just 1 minute. Still, it's not an automatic downgrade of the die size, so at least you have a chance of maintaining it with all these movement and sense enhancements. Psychic Aura is a much weaker version of Warp Reality, less damage, over-reliance on Psionic Talent rolls, loss of difficult terrain and instant teleport are a net loss, even with a slightly wider radius and movement speed reduction. Sure, you can maybe combine movement speed reduction with another party member who inflicts difficult terrain, but at level 18 it hardly matters. Maybe the movement speed is a bit better, but the loss of instant teleport to get you out of danger or maybe get you closer to the enemy, it's a very, very serious nerf in my opinion. It's kind of like hard to say whether Psionic Soul is better or worse, weaker or more powerful than Aberrant Mind. It definitely feels much more front-loaded, more powerful on lower levels, and higher level features don't seem all that impressive, at least not in my opinion, not on paper. However, I'd like to see it perform in actual play. Sorcerer is my favorite class in the game, so if your DM lets you take it for a ride, let me know in the comments down below how it feels. That concludes the subclasses, so let's quickly go over the spells. The names have all been basically copy-pasted from previous Unearthed Arcana, but with some, I'd say, necessary changes. Intellect Fortress is now a 4th level spell instead of a 5th level spell that lasts an hour instead of 10 minutes. Whether that's relevant depends on whether you are playing a combat heavy dungeon crawl, in which case 1 hour is gonna be very, very useful. But if you're playing a story or narrative based campaign with sporadic combat encounters, it's not gonna be that much of a difference. However, it's much more thematic, providing resistance to psychic damage and advantage on mental saving throws. The mechanics of old version didn't make much sense, as the spell only targeted you and worked on all saving throws, which for a spell named Intellect Fortress, I mean, why would you have benefits for your Constitution or Strength saving throws when it's an Intellect Fortress? It's not like a physical fortress, you know what I mean? So it probably kind of like made it a bit overpowered as well. I think the current version is perfectly acceptable, especially because you can protect your allies as well. Mind Sliver has now been provided as a playtest option with the exact same wording for the 3rd time in a 3rd individual Unearthed Arcana document. I think it's safe to assume at this point we will see this cantrip in the official print relatively soon, most likely around the time Baldur's Gate 3 goes into early access or maybe gets a full release. Mind Thrust has been buffed, affecting even more of the target's action economy. For a level 2 spell, it has a very, very powerful effect, affecting not just the reaction but also like probably bonus action, movement and action. The creature has to choose which one to use, so if it becomes official, I'll be using it myself for sure. It's very, very juicy for a level 2 spell. Next up are Psionic Feats. The new metabolic control is a big screw you to wilderness survival scenarios, and 1 minute short rest is low-key nuts on a Sorlock who cycles Warlock spells into more sorcery points. It requires one of those UA subclasses, or another feat which I'll talk about soon, so stick around for a few more minutes. Telekinetic and telepathic have been borrowed from the older Unearthed Arcana, but they've also been modified to require psionic talent for their use. As a result, their benefits have been buffed, but of course you always risk getting your psionic talent die reduced or lost completely. From a thematic perspective, Tower of Iron Will should only buff mental saving throws in my opinion. You know, Tower of Iron Will, not Tower of Iron Body or Iron whatever. From a mechanical standpoint, the reliance on psionic talent, the dependency, is a drawback, so it makes sense for it to work on all 7 saving throws from like the balance perspective, right? Finally, wild talent is a necessary prerequisite for all of these 4 previous feats if you are not playing a psionic subclass to begin with. It evens out the odd ability score, and the psi boosted ability improves, for example, counterspell and other important main ability checks. In my opinion, this is a much more impactful full benefit, then the potential to deal a few more points of damage via your Psi Guided Strike option. Both of these rely on psionic talent die rolls, which is always at risk of getting reduced or lost, especially on lower levels where you're dealing with d6s and d4s. So the chances of rolling a 6 or 4 on any of these is very, very high. Therefore, you're losing your die sizes, you're losing uses of your psionic talent completely. Therefore, you kind of like use your very important feature. So that's kind of like the main gripe I have with these, all of these features that rely on psionic talent die rolls. Still, the bit of extra damage you can do with this feat just might matter for the YouTube algorithm, so use that Psi Guided Strike on the like, share, and subscribe buttons below this video. Don't forget to guess the number of times I said some version of the word psionic in the comments down below too. Special shout out to all of my patrons: Mike, Matthew, Ewing, BardlyManHardlyTrying, Rogor, Kaleron, Cory Clausen, SuburbanHell, Albert Kwak, Aidan Harth, Gary Kors, Oldham, C Alcazar, Bredwin, your boy Fox, Sean, Mannozzi Stefano, Adekoya, bittenbi, Jeremy, Sirois, ShatteredSilence, Lunatic Dragon, Darth Xín, Howell, CrackedMask, Ebonhawk, Alexandre Audet, Nathan, Nicholas, Jaussaud, Francisco Martinez, Keelan, Udell 18, Russ Helms, Joey Fry, Adam McCain, Ted Rygard, Stephen Keyser, B. Jones, John Saylor, Neko, Derek Peck, Barbend Vernis Posting, Tristan Border, Edward Tersinski, Devon Troger, Sean Walker, James Randolph, Rich, Wesley Schick, Matthew Joyce, Edgewalker, Noob God, Techie 3D, Shady Banks, Kyler Beverly, Edwin Lugo, Jonah Katz, Aidan Musumesi, Adam Howard, Robin Smith, Nathan Elf. Sorry for butchering half of your names, as I usually do with these shoutouts. Thank you for your continued support. I know there haven't been as many videos lately, but I will ramp up the output for you guys. Hopefully I won't be playing as much Gloomhaven as I've been playing lately. So stay tuned for that. With everything said and done, me next Munchkin God, talk to you soon.